Hey folks, James and Mike here with something you don't want to miss.
Absolutely. We're spicing things up with our Virgin Voyages cruise giveaway.
So we've been giving you multiple ways to rack up those precious raffle points, right? This week, it's simpler than ever.
Yep, just head to our website and go through the raffle form. Simply hit follow on our YouTube channel to get 5 points.
You heard it, 5 points just for enjoying our YouTube channel.
And remember, all your points add up, boosting your chance to win that dreamy 7-night Virgin Voyages cruise for two.
Hit follow and let's make waves together.
And don't forget to stay tuned to our podcast and social media for more ways to earn points. All the links are in the description at No Tourist Allowed. Hello, I'm Mike Putman.
And I'm James Ferrara. Welcome to No Tourists Allowed. And I am just back from a weekend trip. My trip was just a couple of hours away. Mike, on the other hand, is halfway around the world.
And again, halfway and again. I am, been on the road this week and got a lot of interesting stories to share with our listeners.
Was your travel eventful, Mike?
It was very eventful. So I started out at 4:20 a.m. on Thursday morning, flying out of Greenville. Got to the airport, had a 6 a.m. flight, and I got to the airport at 5 o'clock, James. That was 1 hour before the flight.
Well, that's because the airport's the size of my garage.
And also voted, by the way, the number one small to medium-sized airport in the United States, I might add. Greenville.
Very nice airport, but there's no good food there. That's the only thing.
Actually, there's a Wolfgang Puck restaurant, which is pretty good. There is an American Express lounge, so it's not so bad. But at any rate, I got there, got on the plane, 6 o'clock departure, and at 5:50, the pilot comes on and says, "Hey, the first officer did a walk-around inspection, and the cone, the front cone, he saw some separation. There's some fiberglass, which actually gets made. This is a textile material. It actually gets made in Greenville, by the way, for all planes around the world. But anyhow, that was coming off, and they said, "Don't worry, we've got a technician will be here. We'll get you off the ground in 30 minutes or so." So anyhow, 45 minutes later, they come back and said, the technician came by and he actually saw some separation in the fiberglass, so we're going to have to ground this plane. And so everybody deplaned, had to wait around to get my carry-on luggage, and the flight was delayed 11 times.
Oh,
literally 11 times, and I kept all the notifications just as proof. But at any rate, it was nothing. It was not the airline's fault, and it was Delta. They did a great job communicating. The gate agents were actually exceptionally nice and really tried to help people get rescheduled. I was, at the time, decided to wait around because I had a 1:20 flight out of JFK, so I had a nonstop to LaGuardia. I had a transportation set up to get me from LaGuardia to JFK, and I'd left like 4 hours to do that movement between the two. And at any rate, what happened was the flight kept getting delayed, and it got to the point where I could not make it to JFK in time to catch the flight. So through lots of coordinations and calls and begging and pleading, I got on another flight to JFK, but it unfortunately got me there at 2:30 or whatever time it was, and I ended up having a 12-hour layover at JFK because the next flight to Tokyo, which is where I was heading, didn't leave until exactly 12 hours later after the first flight.
So you lost a day in your trip. Huh?
Yeah, I lost half a day. I ended up getting to Tokyo. I left my house at 4:20 on Thursday. I got to Tokyo local time at 4:55 a.m. So 48 hours time, but there's 12-hour time change. So it was about a 36-hour day of traveling, which was, Look, there were parts of it that weren't so bad. I got into the first class lounge for American because I was in business class on Japanese airline, and so there's worse places to spend spending 12 hours there. Had a really nice flight. Japan Airlines. If you guys listeners have never flown on an Asian carrier, the service is generally speaking outstanding, and certainly it was outstanding on that flight as well. So
It's a long flight to
it
Japan.
is. Now,
Oh.
14 hours, but I had some awesome food on the plane. They had,
On the plane, really?
yeah. They had a choice of Western menu or Japanese menu, and I took the Japanese menu, and it was really, really good food. I mean, food that you
And
would be happy going to a nice restaurant and receiving.
so you don't usually hear awesome and plain food in the same sentence. That's
right.
really good. But you made the right choice, of course. You took the indigenous food, and probably much better than the Western food. So what'd you do in Japan? Now you're in Japan at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, 5 o'clock, and luckily I had a lay flat seat, so I got about 8 hours of sleep, which was nice. So I was kind of okay when I got to the hotel. Stay at the Westin there, which is a very good choice, an exceptional hotel. The standard at that hotel, and I think it's probably true for most Asian hotels, that we might, the West in the U.S. might be like a 4-star hotel. I mean, this is a high 5-star hotel.
Really?
And it's just, and if you took,
This is in Tokyo.
this is in Tokyo, yeah. And if you took, if you took the hardware and placed it in the U.S., it might still be a 4-star Westin. But the way they maintain things, I mean, absolutely spotless, service impeccable. And I mean, I shouldn't say never. I haven't been to many hotel rooms that have been as thoroughly cleaned. And I mean, every service, there was not like a water stain anywhere. I mean, it's just, it was immaculate. It was so sterile.
Great.
Which is what I like in a hotel room.
And they were
yeah.
able to accommodate you early in the morning?
Yeah, I mean, basically what they did is I was communicating with them, by the way, through the Marriott app, which is very convenient, communicating directly with the front desk. And they held the room. I mean, they charged me for the room. I didn't know at the time when I left exactly when I was getting in. So I paid for Friday night, even though I didn't get there until 6. So, anyhow, a little bit extra.
You had use of the room. So how long were you on the ground in Tokyo?
So I got there on Saturday at 4:50 a.m. and I left Monday. So I was there a little over 48 hours.
Okay.
Luckily, I had a friend from high school that I hadn't seen in a while who lives there. He teaches English. And so he was my guide and host, he and his girlfriend, for the day on Saturday. And we had a blast. We traveled definitely like a local. We took one cab. Actually, we took 2 cabs, but we took probably 8 or 9 trains, going to see shrines, going to different parts of Tokyo, going to the that big crossing in Shibuya. I'm not pronouncing that correctly, but it's that crossing that you always see when you see the typical Tokyo. All the lights are up,
Right. Looks a bit like Times Square.
Yeah, but you got like six different roads converging in one point. They call it spaghetti something. But anyhow, it was really interesting because there's such order in Japan, that the lights turn and everybody walks, the light stops, and it's like a ghost town except for cars. I mean,
just like New York.
they engineered things, really, really well. And then I was actually interviewed by the national TV station there. They were having their Halloween event on Saturday night, and they were trying to keep it under kind of containment, because if you guys remember, last year there was a terrible incident in Korea during Halloween for a big event, and several people actually lost their lives. And so I think Tokyo was being very, very careful. So they were out at that particular junction, and there's a famous statue of a dog, and gosh, I can't remember the name of the dog. It starts with the M, I believe. But anyhow, the story, it's a true story, but the dog used to go with his master to the train station, which is right there, every day. His master then would take a train to work and then come back. The dog would be waiting, come back and wait at the train station. So at some point, the master died, but the dog continually came back every day for like 3 years looking for his master.
Oh,
So they have this statue there of this dog, not Maguro, I forget the name of it, but it's a fairly important thing. And anyhow, they had it covered up because of this Halloween festival, and there was a reporter there, and so she interviewed me about the dog statue, which I didn't know anything about. But it was fun.
so you texted me from there. What an interesting culture, you know. And I was in Japan just before the pandemic, on the Diamond Princess, doing a circumnavigation of Japan and South Korea. And the Diamond Princess, for those of you who were paying attention at the beginning of the pandemic, became like the poster cruise for the pandemic, right? Unfortunately, it was the first big reported case of spreading the disease, and some people died, and terrible optics during the pandemic. But anyway, I was in Japan for a while, and I had sort of the same reaction maybe most Westerners do, like, wow, this is an interesting culture. What caused you to have that reaction?
Well, it's a couple of things. One is I was on a train, and I sat down by this elderly gentleman, and the guy stands up and moves to another seat. And I had taken a shower after I gotten back. It wasn't. It
So
wasn't.
it wasn't that.
It wasn't that. I'd brushed my teeth. No, so I don't know what it was. And so my friend that was with me, I said, he looked at me and he goes, some older people there have an issue with foreigners. And I thought, that seems like really bizarre. Like, it wasn't, we came in there with loud music or being obnoxious. I mean, it was just strange, because I don't know of that ever happening to me before. And then so I continued to ask my friend that's lived there for 11 years. And I said, well, like, why would they not like foreigners? And he said, it is because, now this is his opinion, whether it's true or not, I don't know, but he's lived there for 11 years. But he said that they are so shy that it's not that it's offensive to be beside a foreigner, but they're so shy they don't want to have any kind of interaction.
Mm.
So that was one thing that was rather strange. Well, it was very strange. Then I went to a really nice dinner, izakaya, that I've been trying to get into for about 3 months. Got into it, and it was like this little, not super nice place, but it had been written up by magazines as a top place to go to in Tokyo. And anyhow, I went there, and again, not a nice place. And the server was almost standoffish. And again, it was kind of a izakaya is like a casual type place. It wasn't a formal place, but they just had really highly rated food. But the service just definitely did not go with it. I mean, just an example, I asked for water 3 times, literally 3 times could I have water. And we were having other drinks too. It wasn't like we were there on the skinny or trying to save money. I just wanted some water. But there were several other things that went along with that too, which just seemed really out of place to have an exceptionally bad service at a restaurant that was, highly regarded, but casual, certainly not stuffy.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it had something to do with being foreigner, being an American. I don't know, but it was bizarre. So, but
So,
I enjoyed my stay though. I really enjoyed my time there.
in my experience in Japan, it I would say this: there is such a stark difference between that culture and ours that many things feel off, because we're just not used to it. And I do think a lot of it is about shyness, a sort of reserved conservativeness, and it comes off feeling cold to us or cool to us. But especially people of a certain age there, they were brought up not to look you in the eye, which is considered rather forward and aggressive, right? So they don't look you in the eye. They speak very softly. They stand off from you, no closeness, and no judgment about that. It's just totally different from some of us and our backgrounds in the West and in the United States. So we're uncomfortable with it. And yet, what I find very interesting is that's balanced in Japan by a lot of goofiness and animation and in the culture, right? So if you look at the advertising and the promotion and the strange vending machines that vend all kinds of stuff, right? And the characters, the animated characters that are all over, it's like there is a whole other side to the culture that is colorful and a little crazy, you know? So
Yeah, what's one of the things that was actually one of the things I really liked was they had beer vending machines on everywhere. I mean, not
yeah,
like occasionally, but on the streets.
yeah.
Which I thought
Also, if you lose your underwear somehow, there are underwear vending machines in
did not
Japan.
see that.
Anyhow, was there anything? So you told us about this restaurant. Anything else in particular you did that you thought was
No,
memorable?
not really. I mean, I enjoyed my time there. There's actually a really cool Starbucks. It used to be the biggest Starbucks in the world, but it actually has their own. They have a roastery inside the Starbucks. It's 4 stories high.
Hmm.
There's a roasters in the middle, and it's just actually really cool. They roast the beans on the ground floor, and then they got these pipes, and they pipe them up, and they cool them off, and then they come back down into grinders
Cool.
at the actual thing, that was neat. And they also have a tea bar, and they've got a full bar there. It's all pretty interesting. Something I hadn't seen before, but no, that was kind of it. And again, in fairness, I was there 48 hours, but I
Huh.
enjoyed my time very much. And super clean city, really well organized, and I had all the food that I had there was well above average. So really good food place.
If you're a certain kind of traveler, you might go places seeking out history. That's often what I equate with, culture. And
Yeah,
the difficulty in Japan is that as a result of very heavy bombing in World War II, but also as a result of hundreds of years of earthquakes, there is not a lot of physical history in Japan. And you go there thinking, I'll see shogun palaces and whatever. And there is some of that, but it's mostly recreated in the 60s and 70s. So it's a kind of Disney version of the architecture that's supposed to be like, from the 1500s. And there's just not a lot of old buildings, except there are shrines
yeah.
around and you can find them. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a shrine that we went to that was over 2,000 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can find those places. I did one in a cave that we had to climb down to on the edge of the sea. And, there's inside the cave built this beautiful building, this shrine. So there is some of that. But, that was one thing that was a little strange to me as I was looking for more physical culture and historic stuff. And Kyoto is a great city to visit for that purpose. It's been beautifully preserved. And now you went even further, and you're in India.
Yeah, so I went from you talk about polar opposites. So I went from a place that's very sterile and um, clean and orderly to a place that's disorderly with lots of character and certainly lots of culture here as well. So yeah, I'm spending a couple of days here, a few days here, and then I'll be off again. But yeah, again, had another great experience on Japan Airlines. Flew from there to India. So just one tip for our travelers. So maybe this will be worth the price of admission. When you fly to a destination and you're not going, and it's an international destination, and it's not on a nonstop. Sometimes it's better not to go on a nonstop if if your schedule permits. So, in this example, I was flying from New York, and I originally was just trying to get to India, to Delhi, and it is a very long flight, by the way. And there is a nonstop on American that's 14 hours, but I typically break my trip up in London. But this time, I decided to go on Japan Airlines because they had a fantastic business class price. It was really, really good price, number one. So I booked the ticket, and then I thought, you know what? Generally, if you go on a national carrier and you change planes to their hub, which is what I was going to have to do, New York to Tokyo, Tokyo to Delhi, then they'll allow you to do a free stopover. And so that's what I did. So I changed my ticket for a free stopover and got 2 or 3 days of time in Japan and got to see some of Tokyo that I haven't been able to see before. So that was really a really good tip. So I got a great price, got a free stopover in Japan. Of course, I had to pay for my hotel and so forth, but it was a good way to spend a couple of days.
That is a great tip. And the other one I think too is for these long haul flights, you really want to maneuver your way into some lie flat seating. And if you book ahead of time and you do your research, you work with a professional travel advisor, you can do it, and it can be affordable, and it makes the trip humane. If you have to do it, and I know people do it, and you can save a lot of money, but if you have to do it in economy and, with 3 inches of recline on a good day in an economy seat, it's rough. A 14-hour nonstop flight, or even breaking it up with an 8 or 9 hour flight. I mean, don't do that to yourself if you can.
Yeah. And I'll also share with our listeners too, and I sent this article to you, James, a couple of days ago, is right now, I think through November 7th, the airlines are having a business class sale, and people are not going to believe me when I tell them the price, round trip to about 5 or 6 destinations in Europe from certain cities, not from every city. That's $500. The fare part of the ticket is $500 round trip for business class. And it's out of some cities. I remember Nashville. They call them second tier cities. And these are cities that American and British Airways have nonstop flights out of, but it would be a city that you would go, why in the hell is there a nonstop flight out of Nashville to London? Not like, because it's just not a big enough city to support a nonstop flight, but they have them. And so they're offering discounts. There's about 4 or 5 cities that you can do that if you book your ticket now, and you can book it for any time next year. You got to book it at least 50 days in advance, and you got to travel on Tuesdays and Thursdays, which is not that big of a deal. But so once you bundle in the taxes and the fuel surcharge, it's $2,100 round trip, but that's still a hell of a price, and probably better than what a lot of people paid to go and coach this summer. The summer was really expensive. So book those early, take advantage of those. I'm going to, and I don't even know where I'm going, but I will, when I get back home, I'm going to take some time and plan another trip to take advantage of that great airfare deal.
Absolutely great advice. And now you in Mumbai or Pune? Where
I'm in Pune. So I got an office in Pune, and I'm doing this recording from Pune, and I'm getting ready Now it's 8:06 p.m. and I have a team dinner that started at 8 o'clock with my staff here. So I've got to wrap up here in not too long, but yeah, it's
Are you going to get some good food?
oh yeah, yes, I've already had some good food here. And
You got a recommendation for us if we wind up either in Mumbai, Pune, Delhi, someplace?
this is one of those cases where I'm with my team or with a supplier here, and they take me to places, and I don't really remember because I end up talking so much, maybe having a few cocktails, and I don't like the food here is generally very good, like very, very good. And I actually have a friend of mine who we used to work together, and he has a dining club in Pune, and so he knows all the best restaurants. This guy's on. He's like you, James. He's on TV every week, radio, being interviewed because he has this vast knowledge of the food business, restaurant business, and he's got a great club to support it. So he and I are going out for tomorrow night, but I'll write down one.
Oh, I want an introduction for my next trip to India. So let's talk about, first of all, thank you for sharing all that with us, Mike. And in there, guys, are embedded some very good tips about long haul travel experience. So don't be afraid of it. There is a whole world that's a bit farther away than maybe it's outside your comfort zone. And we want you to get there. So you'll use some of these tips to do that. Let's talk a little bit, Mike, about what's going on in the Middle East, because we shouldn't avoid it. It is a world level, a global level concern and conflict. And we're not going to make any political statements about it. We're just going to talk about it. First of all, all of us, as human beings, we have a concern about what's happening there, and the loss of life is tragic, no matter who it is. But we're going to talk about it a little bit from the point of view of the travel industry and what the effect is. Now, our tour operators and vacation companies and religious tourist pilgrimages and so on have all been canceled to that part of the world through the end of the year. The companies themselves have done that. So we're talking about Israel, Jordan. Those are the two big tourism destinations there. Egypt, the conflict has not spread into Egypt, but a lot of people are concerned about going there. So it is affecting travel there. And, a question that comes up a lot is, can my travel advisor help me? I even get this question from travel advisors themselves about what they should or shouldn't do or say in these situations. So I thought this would be a good tip for everyone, and try to give clarity to everyone what to do when something like this happens in the world. Now, this is an extreme example, but there are other examples of interruptions, of conflict, of extreme weather situations. And I just want to be clear that your professional travel advisor will want to help you with everything, but they shouldn't be the source of everything for you. They can make excellent travel arrangements. They can design a trip for you, customize it for you, include, ground transportation and things to do, and even dining and so on. Hotels, flights, of course, all of that. Insurance, which is an important part of this story. You want to have the freedom to be able to cancel your trip. You want to be in the driver's seat. No one should assess the risk except you, because we all have different appetites for risk, right?
Yeah.
We all have,
Risk tolerance. Yeah.
yeah, we all have different tolerances, and no one should make that decision except you. So you want an insurance policy, a real travel insurance policy from an insurance company, not from the tour supplier or anything like that, but an actual insurance company who's going to cover you in a way that allows you to cancel that trip. And I like the for any reason coverage. So you don't even have to justify it. You want to cancel that trip and you're covered. That costs you, a couple of $100. I mean, the peace of mind is worth it. So your travel advisor should be offering you that as part of what they do.
Yeah.
But they should, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I thought you were through.
No, I was just going to get into what they should not offer you, but do you want to?
Yeah, I was just going to say, and for some reason your travel advisor does not mention travel insurance, feel free to ask them. A lot of agents don't push it, and in some cases, especially for if you're going to if you're going to a high risk place or something where you think that there could be some political turmoil, um, the insurance companies don't typically price it if you're going to a high risk place any different than if you were going to Switzerland, right? So if you're going to a high risk place and the chances that there's going to be some kind of conflict or something, in the Middle East is a great example, you're kind of getting a better bang for your buck. So I would always insure that. And if I was going to Switzerland, I might not insure a trip to Switzerland.
Oh, well, I mean, you still should cover your invest. For a lot of people, a trip like that is a major investment. And there may not be conflict in Switzerland, that's true. But, your mom could get sick or something could happen at your job. So I am a believer in travel insurance. And if your travel advisor has not offered you travel insurance and that turns out to be an IntelliTravel advisor, one of mine, I would like to know about it because we teach them to always talk about it. Anyhow, here's what a travel advisor should not be doing. They should not be giving you an opinion on whether or not it's safe to travel or what the risks are in travel. That is not the job of a travel advisor, and they're not trained or qualified to make those judgments. What we can do is give you official, very credible sources of information for you to make your own decision about the risk, right? And typically, what we teach is those should be government-sanctioned sources of information. So we're going to give you a website. We're going to give you a ministry's website. We're going to give you the U.S. State Department's risk assessment on what's going on in countries around the world. You can go there anytime you want to the State Department's advisory about countries and read all the detail about why they give countries certain ratings at a particular time. But a travel on health related issues, we can give you the places to go that are not just chatter on social media or unknown media outlets, but the real official places to go to get the real information to make your own decision about risk.
Now I'm going to say I disagree with you, James.
Holy mackerel.
On the State Department thing, as you very well know, if you go to the State Department right now and you look about, should I travel to Jamaica? It's going to tell you, and I can't remember the wording, but it's something like high risk. And
they're going to give you like a level 3 warning, which is don't go if you
don't go unless it's vital to your business or something. And they're going to say the same thing for Mexico. And so I agree with the other part about other resources. The State Department, it's so innocuous in what they say.
Well, I would say this, Mike, read the detail, right? Forget about the rating, because the ratings, there's a level 3 rating for the United States. If you're in the UK and you look at the UK's foreign ministry. There's a level 3 rating for the U.S. because of violence in this city or violence in that city. So you have to read the detail. The U.S.
Yeah.
State Department will tell you why they give it the rating. And in the case of Mexico, they, after that rating, they immediately say that the violence is in border areas related to drugs, is not in Quintana Roo, which is where Cancun and Tulum are.
By that, the way.
Well, right. At the moment.
But also they say it for blanketly for Jamaica too, which, look, it's not the safest place in the world. Don't get me wrong, but they're using stats that have, a murder rate per million people or 100,000 people, and Jamaica just doesn't.
Jamaica is one of our, if not our top destination. It's either number 1 or number 2, depending.
Yeah.
And the only thing with Jamaica is, we don't send people to Kingston because that's where the issues are. The issues are not in Montego Bay or Ocho Rios, So, anyhow.
But before we leave the Middle East, though, I mean, the reality is there's not going to be travel, not to all the Middle East, but certainly Israel or Jordan, I wouldn't suggest it in the near future. And unfortunately, looks like this conflict is going to, continue. It doesn't seem at this point to have an end point near term. So, if you do have any plans, I wouldn't suggest anyone make any plans until past spring, if not later. Personally, but we do hope for the best for that region. It is truly a tragedy, and it's a great, it is beyond what's going on over there. It is a wonderful destination that if you're of, a Christian faith or a Jewish faith, somewhere that you should make the pilgrimage once in your life.
Even Muslim faith, right? I mean, Jerusalem is a Mecca for the Islamic religion, as are other. What was very interesting, my trip to Israel 2 years ago, I went during the pandemic. The sites that you visit that are really important Christian sites, for example, where Christians believe Jesus was baptized by St. John the Baptist on the River Jordan. That exact same site has an Islamic religious story also, where one of the prophets ascended to heaven in a chariot from that same spot. And the Jewish faith has an important story about that particular spot also. And I found that wherever I went. You go to Jericho, and it's important because of a certain incidents and part of Jesus's life in the New Testament, but it's also important in the Old Testament, and it also has important religious sites for Islam. So the three major religions of the world are intertwined in a way in this area, and it's life-changing to go there. Whether you're religious or not, by the way, because it's also incredibly beautiful and archaeologically very interesting, and the food is great.
Yeah, we say that about everywhere, but I was not expecting to have really awesome food when I went to Israel, and I had really awesome food. It was really good.
Me too. And if you're a foodie into the sort of Michelin and new style food, not just the traditional food there, Tel Aviv has an incredible culinary culture going on right now with new chefs and so on, and Jerusalem too. So, look, I highly recommend it. We can't go there right now, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't be on your list, right?
Use this time now to plan, and the
incredible sites in Jordan
Yeah.
to visit. Also, Israel, certainly Egypt. I mean, that goes without saying. And even into Turkey and so on. This part of the world holds so much fascination for me, and such a great travel experience, that have it on your list, have it in your plans. Let's get back there as soon as we can. And they're all going to need us. They're going to need that support economically from us. So keep them in your prayers, of course, and keep them in your travel plans too. All right, final thing I'll just mention, and maybe we'll talk about it next time, is all those visa requirements that we've been talking about, the changes going to the European Union, have been put off. So that's great news from our perspective in the travel industry. Now you don't have to worry about that until spring 2025. So if you were worried, if you were thinking that might hold up some plans, it's off the table for a couple of years. So don't worry about it. Mike, thank you for joining us from so far away. I know that you're probably tired or hungry or both. So,
but I did not want to miss the podcast, and look forward to another episode next week here on No Tourist Allowed.
Don't forget about our Virgin Voyages cruise giveaway. So amazing. Go to notouristallowed.com to learn more, follow the instructions, get lots of entries into the drawing. Go follow our YouTube channel also, and we'll see you here next week. Thank you all for being at No Tourists Allowed.